Going to create two. One of these are going to be black and white, and one of these are going to be color. And in each one of the designs, you're going to use different letters. So they shouldn't be the exact same letters. And it basically depends on what theme you're going for. For this one, the student edited the color to kind of highlight and emphasize blue. For this one, the student went with a really high contrast look for the black and white. To do that, though, there's quite a few steps. And I'm going to rearrange how I do this because I think it makes sense to set it up before you start working with the letters. But the key thing is you do want to have your letters handy. So I have these ready, my JASON, and then I would have another one for black and white if I was doing both. And two of these are rotated over. You can crop it and rotate it later, I'll show you that, but they're ready to go. And so that's my first step, is to just make sure I have them on the desktop because I'm going to open them in Photoshop later. The next step, which I'm kind of skipping the cropping, I don't want to open it up in Photoshop yet. I just want to create the background. And I tried to make this really easy for you to set up a background image. The bottom line is you're going to make a 6-inch height, but the width depends on how many letters that you're going to use. And there's a way to formulate that, but I've given you a chart to follow. So my name is Jason, JASON's 5 letters. I'm going to make my width 18 inches. Hopefully the number of letters in your name falls somewhere in this chart. You'll notice that each time you go up, it's just another 3.5 added. So if you went to 13 and added 3.5, that would be 46 inches wide and still 6 inches tall. And the 6 inches is the 5 inches for the height of the photo, and then 2 half-inch borders on the top and the bottom. The way that these ones are calculated is the width of the letters, which is 3 inches, multiplied by the number of letters, and then you add an inch for each side for the half-inch borders, and then in between each letters is going to be another half-inch. So it's really important that you get this right so that you can set it up and make it look good when you're done. And part of your grade is based on how clean your final posters look. So let's go ahead and Photoshop and see how you do that. And there's a reason why I'm suggesting you do this first. So go ahead and click New File, and you'll see you have a new document option. And I've already got it set here for my width is 18, my height is 6, but you would simply change the numbers and make sure it's showing inches. And then you have a choice for background color. My recommendation is, unless you have something fancy you're doing with color, you stick with white or maybe black, just to keep it clean so the focus is on the letters and not on a overly bright backdrop. I'm not going to grade you down for it. I'm just saying for design aesthetic, it looks better to not be cluttering it unless it ties in with your theme and you're doing some edits with color. So I'm going to stick with white just because it's easy to see and clear. And I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to hit Create. And so now I have my template. And later on, I'm going to drop all my 3x5, 3 inches wide, 5 inches high photos. I guess it's 5x3 in here. And there's going to be a ½ inch on each border. And then there's going to be a ½ inch between each letter. And then basically that works out really well. You have here something called a guide, and that actually helps a lot to lock in your photos and not be guessing. It makes it look better, and if you have any guides in there, you can just hit clear. If not, you're going to go to New Guide Layout. Now this one was already preloaded. Unfortunately, it switches it back to pixels, so I am going to go ahead and write them in as inches because you're going to want to do that to make this work. So your columns are these things right here. They're verticals. And for me, there's 5. So you're going to put the number of letters that you have as columns. If you have 6, you're going to have 6 columns. You're always going to have 1 row. That's this row right here. So I'm going to rewrite that as in inches because the row's height is 5 inches. And the gutters between the rows, I guess they don't really matter for this particular one because there's only 1 row. But if you had one, it would be 1 inch. I lost my thing. I hit a return, get back to that, and go back to the guide layout. So again, my height is going to be 6 inches or 5 inches for the row with a 0.5 inch gutter, and my width for each, my height for the row, my width for the columns is going to be 3 inches, and my gutter is going to be 0.5 inches. I'm just typing in inches so it knows what unit of measurement that I'm using. And then all of these are also 0.5 inches. 0.5 inches. 0.5 inches. 0.5 inches. And when I've got that, what I have is a nice template that I can work with to drop in all of my photos. I'm going to hit OK. And then because I had some trouble last time and I hope this doesn't happen again, I'm just going to go to guides. I'm going to lock this guide just so that it doesn't get changed. All right, so I've got my place. When I'm done with my letters and I've edited them, I just drop them in this guide. It's really, really easy to do. So the next thing I'll do now is the time I think where I'm going to want to open this up in Photoshop. Right click, choose Photoshop, and it will open up all of the letters. And since I had it all in alphabetical order, it sort of followed that, which makes my job a little easier. I'm just going to take a look at them. And I immediately know right now that I need to rotate a few. So I'm going to take this one right here, and to rotate an image, I just go up to Image, Rotate, and this one I'm going to do 90 degrees clockwise. There. So there's my S. And for this one, I'll have to zoom in on that and recrop it, but I'm going to first rotate it to be in the right orientation. So I'm going to go ahead and do that one 90 degrees clockwise as well. So there are all my letters in that one too. I think I saw that in years ago, and I'm going to rotate that one 90 degrees clockwise so that my N is oriented a little bit better. Okay, so I've got what I needed. Now comes the phase where you really want to crop the photos. You're going to want to change this to 3 inches by 5 inches, and it's a ratio crop so that you can always keep the same ratio. No matter what, it's always going to end up being a 3 by 5. And my goal here is to drag the letters and make them as larger so that they fill the frame. I don't want my letters to be really tiny, and I want them to be as consistent as I can. So the cropping is going to actually help you zoom in and bring the letters closer to the forefront. And so now that letter is really ready to drop into this because the guide's still there, locked it. So I'm going to hang on to that because I still want to do some more editing with it. But I do want to set this one up too for the same. There's my A. Shift it over just a little bit this way to get the A as centered as I can. And I think that's going to be good for now. And I'm going to hit return or click done. And then it's still set to 3 by 5. I want to tighten up a bit on this letter and just drag the photo so it's centered. I'm using the rule of third guides to help me orient it. And again, I really want that to be as big as I can so that it matches the other letters. Click done. And same thing with the O. This one I really need to get in closer. So I wasn't quite close enough on the original crop. Hit return. And then my N. This one's tricky because I'm going to have to do a best fit here and just go for that. It's tricky because it wasn't shot correctly, so I am still trying to get my N. However, it's somewhat problematic. Now for each of these photos, you're going to want to go to Filter. Sometimes it's good to get off of the cropping once you've done it, because every time you move to a photo it crops, especially when you're doing your final one. So I'm just moving it back to Image Transform. Filter, Camera Raw. And since I was going to go black and white, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to change my exposure levels a little bit and my contrast levels. And again, this is something you can spend some time with. Try to be consistent with the look that you're establishing. And there's actually a way to do that. If I like this look, I can go to each letter and keep it the same. I'm just going to go to Filter, and instead of going to this Camera Raw filter, I'll click on this, and it's going to apply the exact same settings that I set for that first photo to each image, which saves some time, especially if you like the way that that one image looked. So I'm doing that for all of them now, just applying the same Camera Raw filter that I just did so that there's a very consistent look between all of these photos. Do you have to do it that way? Not necessarily, but it helps. Now, there's one other thing that I wanted to show you, which is there are a couple of different ways to delete parts of this image so that you can isolate the shape. So for example, this one right here really looks like a better J if this is out. So slow down for this, because what I'm doing is I'm creating a lasso tool, and I'm making a selection where I click and hold, and I carry this selection all the way around until I connect it, And then I see what are called the marching ants, and that's showing me what the selection is that I've done. What I'm going to hit is delete. And so it's what's called as a content aware fill delete. And I hit OK. And it usually knows very well what I'm looking for. I didn't do that great of a job there, but at least some of the work is done. Individual results may vary. There's another tool called a spot healing brush tool or remove tool. I'm going to use the remove tool for this one. And just try to clean up some of those selections. Starting to have a little bit better effect. And if you're really in a pinch, there's the old school way of doing this was called the clone stamp tool. What I'm doing with the clone stamp tool is I am taking a brush size, which is controlled up here, and I'm hitting a button where I want to copy that. So I have to hit Option click. Option click. I don't have a Mac on me. There. And what it'll do is, if you see that little crosshair, it's taking that, and I'm using that area to try and clean up the best I can. So Option click. And again, this is not the best edit ever, but I did really quickly show you 3 tools that you could use to delete certain objects. I noticed in this photo I've got a person here, so I'm going to try that again with the lasso and just take this person out. And again, individual results vary because it's using basically AI to decide what should be there, and it doesn't always get it right. So I selected my piece, I hit OK. Kind of did it. Kind of did it. See if I can get that part to delete too. Delete. Okay. So I've got my images cleaned up, and I did an edit. So I like what I've done, and I'm trying to go quickly to just show you how it all works. So at the very end, I've got my letters. I'm going to drag them over and just size them. They should drop right in very easily and almost just snap into place. And I'll do that for every letter just so you can see how that final moment where things come together is going to look. I think I forgot to hit return. So let me get this one back in place before I deal with the second one. And again, I'm using those guides. Click done. I got my second layer right here. Bring that down. And then again, more guides start to show up. Fill that up. Click done. There's layer 2. And then I'm going to take my S and move it over. This is going to be layer 3, third layer on top. I used to snap to it. I don't know what they did differently, but it's not snapping as easily as I'd seen it in the past. I'm going to take my O and drop it in. And once again, I forgot to click done. Sometimes it's better to make mistakes on tutorials because then people laugh at me and then realize how to fix it. Done. So back to this layer. And again, I'm going to drag it, put it back in my guide. Done. And then my final one, the N, I take that one over, bring it to my layer that I'm working with, drop it in, scale it to fit, and just use those guides to help me line it up. And then of course, click done. So now I have my template. And the last thing to do before turning it in is, if you're happy with the look and you're happy with the alignment, and you know you've got 1/2-inch borders and gutters and everything's clicking, great. Go ahead and take that whole project, this whole file, hit export or save as, either way. I like export, but save as works too. Actually, it's not working that well. I'm just going to do export. Export as, and you've got really only a couple formats here. I'm going to choose JPEG because that's what the assignment will take. Export, and I'm just going to write JASO N, B, and W. That's for black and white. Save it, and then I'll show you that I've got that image that was created with this tutorial. It's the JPEG, opens up in, scale it so you can see it, and that's what you'll submit. You'll do one of these in color, one of these in black and white, you're using different letters for each one, and you're submitting both. And I believe I'll be able to print one, maybe two of them, so just be ready for that. And yeah, when I see it, all I see is this like sloppy edit, but at least I showed you how that worked. Hopefully this is helpful for you in getting your project off the ground, and you can use this whenever you get stuck. If ever you have a trouble, like say for example things don't work, just go back, click new, start over again. Do the guide over again. Be patient with this. But if you're careful and you're focused, this shouldn't take you too long to get together all the letters that you put together and make a pretty cool poster. Thank you for watching.